Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We've moved on to the Sport tab in the Eurocorps deck building sort of list here, looking at unit comparisons, and today we're on Mortars, starting off with the 35 versus 40 point West German Mortars, then we'll talk a little bit about the French options as well. So Bikefish is here with us to give us our guide today on Mortars.
So when it comes to mortars in Eurocorps, we do really see preference for the two West German options for a couple of reasons. First off, you will notice that these are actually the same mortar. It's a different chassis with some different soft stats between them. So this mortar is a 5 HE mortar. Very comfortable. It means you get a nice big smoke cloud while it does fire a little bit slower. Um, the smoke you get from it is nice and big. Additionally, it does a very good job of being Airstrahl's tube artillery in a battery of 2 or 3 of them, um, and has a nice range associated with it because it is that larger 120 millimeter round.
Gotcha. So for 5 points, if you're looking strictly between these two, what you get are, that's what, one more volley of ammunition here? And then you also get better speed and autonomy. Which one of these do you take personally?
So I bounce back and forth between these all the time. With the way I'm running my deck now, where I find that additional ammo count to be more valuable, I am running the M113 at this point. But really, it just comes down to the trade-off of: do you want the absolute cheapest mortar that is, or the cheapest viable mortar, I should say, when we have the AMLs staring at us in the face, the cheapest viable mortar, or do you want one that maybe gives you some additional capability in that battery style role? If you really just are primarily using your mortars for smoke and are not using them in an anti-infantry or like Airstrats tube artillery role, one, why aren't you doing that? It makes them really good. But if you if you aren't doing that, the HS30 is going to just be a little bit better from that cost efficiency standpoint. While if you are using it in that more mortar spammy, make your opponent rage style stuff, the M113's additional ammo capacity does just kind of push it over the edge a little bit there.
And if you doubt that, try this for anti-infantry and then tell me how many more times you want just one more volley before you have to buy another. So I am going to push you a little bit here. The AMLs you said were non-viable, and I'd like you to tell me why.
So the reason they're non-viable, in my opinion and experience, in comparison to the Tampella carriers, is that we're dealing with a 2 HE mortar instead of a 5 HE mortar, and a mortar that has greatly reduced range. While the rate of fire difference is nice, I know we were talking about it before, how, from an anti-infantry standpoint, that additional rate of fire can definitely be an interesting thing to play with. The greatly reduced range means you really have to be on the ball with your positioning if you are going to be utilizing these for smoke. And because they're 2 HE, those smoke clouds just are not very big. If you are trying to maneuver multiple vehicles in and out of a single mortar supplying smoke, it's really going to be a lot harder with an AML.
Gotcha, that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I'd like to point out here is there are a couple of good 3HE mortars for it, and particularly the South African one comes to mind. But that guy carries 150 rounds. This one carries 66, which is actually basically the same as the M113, which is at 63. I think it's the same number of volleys. And that's just not very much. So you're going to have to be buying these again pretty soon. And the higher rate of fire means they'll even burn through those rounds quicker. So it will be a noticeable effect there. And then just to top it off, the VPM 120, the 60-point mortar option, it looks like better dispersion, still has 5 HE, maybe a little bit of a different rate of fire, and you do get it on wheels. Is there ever a role for this?
So this is more of a Airstrats artillery rather than general purpose mortar. From the standpoint of its supply cost per round is more expensive. I think the last time I looked at it, it was a significant amount higher. And additionally, you do get a lot less of them. You only get 4 and 3 versus 6 and 4, which is a big deal, especially since you're downvetting your mortars all the time. You should be downvetting your mortars. Losing out on that to availability is a pretty big hit if you are using them also in the manner of buy one and do the group and split trick to resupply them.
Gotcha. Well, that makes a lot of sense, and it looks like either of these options would be a good choice. Play around with them, see which one you're more comfortable with, and ignore the French ones unless you have a really, really, really good reason not to. That's going to be our comparison for today. We'll be back here tomorrow with the tank tab, which I think has a lot of really interesting options. I'm really excited to get to it.